He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow. This is a Hawaiian Shirt Friday, and I'm very glad you're here. We got a good show for you today. Michelle Tafoya will be with me later on. I just taped with her. Terrific. She is a Minnesota resident, and I think lives in the Minneapolis area most of the time. So she's got an extra interesting perspective on the trans contagion, how it affected her community, and how they're reacting to the horrific shooting by this demonic figure. And I say demonic intentionally, and that's where I want to begin today. I've been thinking about this, and I think that this is real evidence. The evidence is lining up. If you see the etchings on the gun, you see the etchings in the manifesto from this Robert Robin guy, who the media's rushed to try to preserve and honor and respect his desired pronouns, which we don't really know what they were. We're just getting to know this person posthumously after he shot up a bunch of children. And I played that unbelievable Jake Tapper clip from yesterday where he's talking about how we really need to honor those pronouns. It's really important for us to do that. And then you see that in the context of, Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, saying that Minnesota is the greatest sanctuary state in all of Minnesota, whatever that means. And you see something that's clear to me is that when you add all this up, that there is a demonic presence here that's at work. And I don't say this as a joke. I say this as, I'm not trying to be provocative. I'm trying to be literal here, that's what adds up. When you have to believe what they're telling you, they're showing you that we are going to try to preserve the dignity of a mass murderer over Catholic children and their families who are praying. And they are in a mass for the first time all year. And yet we're preserving the dignity of the murderer who hates Jesus Christ, who hates Donald Trump, who clearly is disturbed and has drawings of himself looking in a mirror, and he sees the devil staring back at him. So it's pretty clear to me that there's a demonic nature to all this. And I want to share something with you. This is a video, one of the fathers of one of the two children who were killed in Minnesota. And check this out.
A coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming. Fletcher loved his family, friends, fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play. While the hole in our hearts and lives will never be filled, I hope that in time our family can find healing. I pray that the other victim's family can find some semblance of the same. I'm hopeful that all the wounded are able to make a full recovery and return home to their families. And finally, all the people, and especially the children, impacted by this horrific event are able to recover mentally and find strength to live loving, happy, and full lives.
I want you to contrast this with what Jake Tapper is saying, how we need to respect that the murderer wanted to be known as a she and not as a he, and how they tie themselves up into knots over this. This is the devil at work. This is Satan that's doing this. I introduced this concept. I was talking about this with Mike Slater, who is our host of Breitbart News Daily this morning on Sirius XM. I was on his show. We were talking about this, and I'd advanced this viewpoint that I think that this individual was possessed, and that was what compelled them to do this. They're waiting specifically for children to show up at a Catholic mass on the first mass of the school year, knowing that they would be defenseless, and to, given the background of what's in the documentation, what's in the sketchings, what's in these writings, clearly this is someone who's possessed. It's someone who, if you read it, this is someone who's crying for help but was not getting it. And then Mike highlighted this passage from 2 Corinthians for us. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it's no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. And I think about this in the context of, clearly I think the burden of proof on this individual is that you have to prove to me he was not possessed. And then everyone else who is going to his defense, who is trying to distract, the Jacob Frys, the Amy Klobuchars, who want to talk about gun control immediately. Jen Psaki, who rushing to her keyboard. Prayer is not freaking enough. You got to say freaking for some reason. Prayers does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. To attack prayer at this moment, it's a profoundly odd thing to do, you would think. What there seems to be pointless. Of course, prayer is a comfort to those who are engaging in the prayer. Gavin Newsom's social media account, which is clearly not run by Newsom himself, essentially mocked the children victims. When Aaron Rupar, who's one of the left-wing Twitter gadflies, pointed out a clip of the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, responding to Jen Psaki, Newsom's account responds, these children were literally praying as they got shot at. Horrible grammatically horrible phraseology. But this is what's going on here, is they're attacking children who are praying, essentially mocking them. Prayer does work. But that's not the debate that needs to happen right now. What needs to happen now is for all of you guys to be quiet and mourn. And if you have anything productive to say, say it. But attacking prayer is the definition of not productive. It's the devil's work. That's what's going on. So when you have a trans person who murders children, who targets Catholic children in particular, and the left acts as though the trans are the victims, which is what we're witnessing, then you know that there's something up beyond just these people are wrong politically. I was over, as I often do these days, for some dark humor. I headed over to Rosie O'Donnell's TikTok account, where she's over there. She's fantasizing about Trump dying. She had a fantasy about him ranting about this. It's coming to an end. He's not doing well. Trump is going to die and she has a image like the Shepard Fairey Obama Hope poster, but it's Trump's hand, because you guys have seen Trump had the weird makeup thing on his hand, maybe covering up a bruise. So we know what's going on there, and I wish someone would explain it to us. But I'm guessing it's not imminent death, but she's openly rooting for imminent death of the President of the United States, who has an approval rating that, is over 50% in some polls, or near 50%. A lot of people love what's going on in this country. Do you guys catch the poll on the right track, wrong track, where now there's 0% Democrats who think the country's on the right track? 0%. Look, if you're a committed Democrat at this point, you should think it's on the wrong track, because we're running away from the Democrat agenda. Is that not as big of a vote of confidence for Trump as you could possibly imagine? Is it every single Democrat in the country thinks he's doing stuff wrong? Sorry, I respect liberals, but the Democrat Party stands for the trans stuff. They stand for the land rights, the opening their conventions with land rights. But just to finish out my point on the devil's work, which is what's happening here. It's not only was this individual possessed, but there are gradations of the devil's presence, Satan's presence. And his servants are disguising themselves there were moments of temptation that they are indulging. And it might not be a full-on exorcist-style demonic possession. I'm not saying that for Gavin Newsom and for Jake Tapper and for Jen Psaki. But there's something working on these people that they feel compelled to use their public platforms at this moment to try to treat the trans murderer as a victim and as the people who are praying as the oppressors. The prayer is what is oppressing you. I don't know where else you would get that idea aside from the devil himself. And I think it's something to really think about at this moment. Because to be in denial of that, I think is taking some things off the table that we ought not take off the table as explanations for some of the things that's going on. I'll connect it with another news item. One of the things that's being discussed quite a bit in the press, this woman, Suzanne Menares, who was a longtime government scientist, a quote-unquote infectious disease expert, put up to run the CDC. And she's being difficult in terms of getting the CDC reformed in the image of HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. So she's getting the boot, and she gets fired, and she immediately hires Abby Lowell, who's the famed attorney who represents a lot of Democrats. Hunter Biden comes to mind, is a frequent figure in breaking the law. And again, I actually respect that people who I disagree with politically and disagree with on legal matters, they should get the best counsel representation that they can afford. That's fine. But just know that she runs to, Democrat Super Attorney Abby Lowell. And basically, there's a conflict of interest that's taking place because Kennedy thinks she's being insubordinate because she's refusing to make some of the reforms, some of the firings that he wants to do, in particular, rethinking some of the vaccine policy, which I don't know if this is news to you, but the CDC's vaccine policy has been on a bit of a bad run lately. So Kennedy's looking at that again, and Kennedy has been it made me look very good as one of his biggest champions, I think, during the confirmation process, because I see him abiding by the scientific method. I see him abiding by the evidence. I don't think he's doing anything radical. I don't think he's doing anything conspiratorial. I think he's operating on a very logical plane. And if this person is being insubordinate, then he can find someone else. So the big question, I guess, is going to be whether or not a judge rules that Kennedy is the one who has the right to fire her. I don't see why he wouldn't, but maybe it has to come from Trump. And then the question is, how badly is Trump gonna stand with Kennedy? So that's what's going on over at the CDC. And so there are these high profile resignations in protest. And one of the guys that is out there is Dr. Dmitry Daskalikis, who sent a really dramatic tweet out where he's saying he's resigning from the CDC. And in the tweet, he identifies his pronouns, and he used the term pregnant people. He's being specific that men can get pregnant. You don't use the term pregnant people unless you think men can get pregnant. And if our government scientists believe this, it's a very disturbing thing. So he was working in the CDC until apparently earlier this week. Okay, so a guy named Kevin Bass, who's doing some online sleuthing, then found a bunch of photos of Dr. Daskalikis, whatever his name is, doing blatant satanic rituals. He's got pentagrams all over him, and it's just one after the next. It's just, he's a clear Satanist, or at least cosplays as a Satanist. And we're learning way more about him than we're learning about these victims of this murder, who had clearly targeted Christians. And I just find this to be an unbelievable moment that we're in, where we are now dealing with the pregnant people's guy, and he is somehow getting elevated in the news cycle, where we just witnessed all of these beautiful children get gunned down in a school. All right. Hollywood, of course, has no idea how to deal with any of this stuff. They have no idea how to deal with Trump. They have no idea how to deal with the fact that he's focusing on these 80-20 issues. They actually hate him for it, and they try to figure out ways to try to do him harm. And it always seems to backfire. If you want to speak about demonic, I was over at Rosie O'Donnell's TikTok page. I've been known to do this. It's for S's and G's, if you know what I mean. And it's just so deranged over there that I saw that she had this Shepherd Fairy themed poster. You know those things, the Obama Hope poster? And it's got a picture of Trump with, Trump's got the bruised hand, and they put the makeup on the hand. And it says hope. And the whole implication is that she wants Trump to die, obviously. And then she falsely called the Catholic school shooter a Republican for some reason, a MAGA person. But she's fantasizing about Trump dying. So these people are clearly just at a minimum deranged, if not outright demonic. And we track them. And we make fun of them too. And Neil Young has put out a song. I did not grab the song. I did not make Misty grab the song. But he's only got one song, right? Neil Young? Look, I got the Harvest Moon album. It's a good album, but every song is the Old Man Take a Look at My Life song, right? Oh man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you. That's every Neil Young song, right? Every one. Does he have any diversity? Does he have any range? So I understand when artists feel like they got to stand up to the man, and Trump's the man now. I get it. That's what South Park's doing. They don't have anything brilliant to say. They're just like, hey, well, we got to stand up to him. He's in power. I want to read you these lyrics for this new song. It is called, let's see, what are they even calling this thing? The crime in DC? I don't know. It's something about crime. Here we go. This is a Neil Young new song. No more great again. No more great again. There is big crime in DC at the White House. Don't need no fascist rules. Don't need no fascist schools. Don't want soldiers on our streets. There's big crime in D.C. at the White House. There's big crime in D.C. at the White House. Now it gets good. Got to get the fascists out. Got to clean the White House out. Don't want soldiers on our streets. There's big crime in D.C. at the White House. A lot of classics, a lot of bangers in these lyrics. Talks about billionaire fascists. Talks about time to black out the system. That's what Neil Young's about, I guess. I mean, it's just, here's the thing. If you had a creative writing assignment and someone had to write a protest song and they wrote this, you would give it an F, right? I mean, these are the least creative, most on the nose lyrics you've ever seen. You've never seen anything more on the nose than this. So that's all they got is just keep calling Trump a fascist. It's nonstop. I was looking at the president of Portugal was saying that Trump's a Soviet asset or something. It's not just Russian now, it's Soviet. Trump wants to bring back the Soviet Union. Even though during Trump's first administration, he proactively sent the weaponry to Ukraine. He killed Wagner troops in Syria, and he made it difficult for Putin to do the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So Trump's record is at least as tough on Russia as anyone else. Biden basically baited Russia into invading Ukraine. So what is Trump's real legacy here? He's a Soviet puppet? They're just out of stuff to say. They have nothing to say because everything they're trying is not working. I will say just a last little point on woke. The Cracker Barrel founder, who's 93, he was pretty tough on the $7 million a year CEO, Julie Fells Massino. I will say that what's interesting to me about he says they're trying to modernize to be like the competition. Cracker Barrel doesn't have any competition. I love that. That's so right. They already had a niche. They already had a lane that they were very good in that lane. So he says, I heard she was at Taco Bell. What's Taco Bell know about Cracker Barrel and country food? They need to work on the food and service and leave the logo alone. Good stuff. So $6.68 million a year for her to mess up the marketing. Wild, completely wild. That's allowed. She gets paid. Gosh, I'm thinking how many reporters I could pay for $6 million. Oh my God, to help save the country from the woke left. Okay. All right. The biggest news of the day, I guess, there's a couple of big ones. I'll save one for the end. But one of the biggest ones that's very hot right now is the announcement that Trump is going to pull Kamala Harris as a Secret Service detail. So Kamala is still a Secret Service detail. And hopefully she doesn't need it. I don't know why anyone would threaten Kamala Harris. She's not a threat to anyone. So hopefully there's no acts of violence that take place. But she has extended Secret Service protections that are not necessary. When I was researching Breaking Biden, I was researching my Kamala Harris chapter. I spoke to law enforcement who was on her detail in LA. She's extremely rude and she blocks off traffic and she's rude to the staff and she doesn't run on time. So which causes people to miss stuff. And so I don't know why people need to have extended protections for her right now. And especially, and here's the key, she's about to put out a book, big book. It's going to sell a lot of copies, I'm sure. Probably not that many, but a few. And she's going to go on a book tour and then she's going to trash talk Trump. So she's essentially going to use the book tour to do campaigning to maybe run for president again. I don't know if she will because I think she'll lose and be humiliating. But she might run. And if she does run, then why would Trump give her Secret Service protection, thus campaign funds for her to run for president via this book tour, which is really what it's all about. And because of that, I felt compelled to show you this clip of her promoting the book that I saw online. Check this out.
Okay, I almost forgot these. Let me make some room. Actually, I think I have everything I need.
So this is her in her bedroom or in a hotel bedroom, but I think this looks like her bedroom, a bedroom that she sleeps in. And she's in comfy jammies, a little sweater. She's in the relaxation zone right now. but she's still got full makeup and hair, glam. She looks great, looks relaxed, looks comfy. Looks like she's ready to make you a chicken or turkey. Doesn't have to be a chicken. Maybe some empanadas. Is that even how you pronounce it? I don't think it is, but she'd make it for you. She's a chef. And then she's got her toothbrush. You got one of those toothbrush caps, or the toothbrush, doesn't bump into the shaving cream, whatever you got in the DOP kit. Smiley, happy, selling some books. It's just not presidential. Nothing about this woman says presidential. But she's going to try to run for president with the book tour, and she's going to trash Trump. So why would Trump provide extra Secret Service protection that she's not entitled to? Okay, more news. I would consider this good news. We're looking at the Lisa Cook scenario, this Fed governor who is in a term where I will be well into my 50s by the time her term ends. So Trump's trying to get her out. She's not helpful. And then Bill Pulte, who is supposed to be in charge of Fannie and Freddie, but he's taken it upon himself to police Democrats and left-wingers for mortgage fraud. And he's found yet a third property that she's allegedly misrepresented. The first two she claimed were her primary residence. They weren't, or at least one of them wasn't. She was getting rent, and she wasn't declaring the rent. So all of this is very improper for someone who should be involved in any sort of fiscal policy for the country at all. Whether or not Trump can fire her, we're going to see. But he found another property with misrepresentations on it. The U.S. District Judge who's going to look at her firing is Gia Cobb, who is a Biden appointee, and they were in the same sorority. So this is probably one where at least the first judge is probably going to side with, just based on the math, is going to side with Lisa Cook. But I still think the conversation is productive and getting people to understand that there's people in our government who think they're two tiers of justice. They can get away with stuff they can't, and then get appointed to terms that last well over a decade. And would you like to have job security for over a decade for what you do? You probably would. Okay, so yeah, Democrats still trying to figure out ways to deal with Trump, and they can't do it. Gavin Newsom is now blasting Trump on crimes with all caps trolling, noting that crime is higher in certain parts of the country with Republicans in it. It's just not the right approach. The right approach is that crime is too high and we take crime seriously, but no one has at all. If they feel like they're going to win a primary, they don't feel like they can have humility at all. They can't have nuance at all. It's just Republicans are bad. And you see Newsom highlighting in areas that are red states, but have deeply blue areas where there's a lot of crime that takes place. And a lot of it's black on black crime, to be honest, but we can't talk about that. And he just wants to try to frame himself up as a tough on crime guy when he has been instrumental in the deterioration of America's cities, which all got more infested with crime on his watch. And remember, he was mayor of San Francisco. The San Francisco DA was there. Gascon. He comes down here. He ruins LA too. San Francisco became a total hellhole. I wrote about this in Breaking Biden, my second book. It's one of my favorite parts of the book is watching the deterioration of the Bay Area. And a lot of it is pointed right at Newsom and at Kamala Harris, by the way. So that is really going to be a big theme if both of them run. So the Bay Area was so crime-ridden. Law and order will be, as of now, I think the number one election issue for 2028 or in mid-2025. So it's a ways off. But if I had to bet today, if I was putting money down today, I'd put law and order as the number one issue. And these guys do not have a leg to stand on. And so seeing how they try to get out of it is going to be it's going to be worth tracking. Trump is, speaking of 2028, I'm really talking 2026. Trump's mulling holding a Republican National Convention ahead of the midterm. I love it. I like these gatherings. It's fun. It's exciting. It's content. It's good to commune with one another, see people, give speeches, control the narrative. The Democrats are talking about doing something similar, and that's smart. I think you should. So I think that's a worthwhile thing to do, and it's one where, as a news person, I have a vested interest in it because it'd be great content for us. But I like the idea of it. Let's just have a convention. Let's talk about where we stand. Where the party at? What do we represent? Who are our people? Who are our stars? Let's let them speak about what's important to them. So the Democrats are smart. They'll do the same thing. But that could be an interesting development if we start seeing conventions, instead of being once every 4 years, go to once every 2 years. They're expensive. They're hard to pull off, and they definitely drag, and you feel drained by the end of it. But I'm for it. Let's do it. The one downside is that, if it increases voter turnout, higher, the lower voter turnout tends to favor Republicans. So, but I think overall it's good. Let's do it. Why not? All right, some economic news. This is the subject of my Breitbart Confidential with John Carney today, so I encourage you to go over there. Breitbart Fight Club for our premium members. You'll get more detail there. But we got a PCE inflation and we got some GDP revisions. The GDP revisions were, I think, very positive for, again, I mentioned this on yesterday's broadcast, how they keep underestimating GDP. People keep underestimating the economy in general. But the PCE inflation, we're looking at how consumers are spending. Consumers highly confident, as I mentioned on yesterday's show. And the inflation data month to month declined. So year over year, it hasn't changed, but we want that pace to decelerate. But month to month, it's declining. And people are feeling very good. And there's no durable goods inflation, which is shocking to me. Because if you think with tariffs, at a minimum, durable goods, a lot of which we rely on overseas, you think in Japan, you're thinking China, you're thinking Europe, we've seen no durable goods inflation, virtually none. I'm a rounding error for durable goods inflation. It is just such a dunk on all of the fiscal libertarians who told us that tariffs don't work. Tariffs are absolutely working, and they're going to add to our revenue for the government without creating inflation, without additional taxation. So it's just another brilliant policy from Trump. And again, I don't lead you guys astray. I read all the same free trader literature growing up, and I found it very convincing. And I came off of that thing, and now we're here, and that is awesome. All right, Governor Abbott signed the Texas Big Beautiful Bill redistricting into law. Another one where the Republicans this is going to work out for us. I think it's good to push this. We're going to pick up seats, and if the Democrats try to fight fire with fire, it also makes them lose the moral high ground, and they cannot redistrict as many seats as we can. So that's a positive. So over the weekend, a couple of items to highlight. First of all, North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Putin are going to be with Xi Jinping at a Chinese military parade. Always interesting to see the optics of that, to see where China's at, and do a big show for us with a bunch of communists. And we'll see what that looks like. We'll have coverage for you at Breitbart.com. But also there'll be some real AstroTurf Labor Day demonstrations against Trump that we'll be tracking at Breitbart. I probably won't do a fresh show on Monday. So as of now, it's not the plan at the moment. So go to Breitbart.com for that coverage. But you want to get a look at this, I'll bring you some clips for Tuesday. But there will be some demonstrations. I'm guessing it's going to be AstroTurfed. Let's see what type of energy the left is bringing there. All right, last fresh item for the day. Joni Ernst is not going to seek re-election in the Senate in 2026. I've always liked Joni Ernst, and for some reason, the MAGA right, the extremely online right, doesn't like her very much. I find her to be genuine and to be really good on the issues, and I find her to be open-minded and nuanced on things where I don't disagree with her. I don't find her to be super dogmatic on things. And we need some of these people who can be a bridge between the establishment and the anti-establishment. I think she's a perfect person for that. So I'm going to be sad to see her go. It's also going to be a tough race because I don't know if you're going to get a more establishment person to win a primary. It could be a more MAGA person. It could be more establishment. Ernst generally votes MAGA, even on the Hegseth stuff, where she ticked off a lot of people because she was questioning some of the accusations against Hegseth, and she ended up voting with him. So I think she came around to the right side. But I will say that there's a good chance that the nominee is not as high quality of a senator, and certainly someone who's not going to be as communicative with me. She's incredibly communicative with me in Breitbart, which I think is smart. And it also is helpful to me running the newsroom and wielding the powerful platform that I do at Breitbart. And it's a seat of Democrats could pick up. It really is one where it's an odd enough state, Iowa, where even though it should be a red state, is not entirely predictable. So I'm sad to see her go, but hopefully there is a possibility we get someone even more MAGA hardcore in there. So it's a possibility, but not great news. In my opinion, we still saw her, though, spar with Trump, and maybe she's burned out on it. I don't have any detail other than what I'm reading in the news. I was not tipped off to this ahead of time. So I will try to back channel and see what I can learn over the weekend. But overall, not great news, with potential for, in the end, some positivity. But it's another seat that would have been a slam dunk Republican seat that is now not necessarily a slam dunk. So interesting stuff. So there's a silver lining, perhaps. There's a silver lining perhaps in the end, but not great news from my vantage point. Okay, let's bring in Michelle Tafoya. But before we do, let me tell you about Crockett Coffee. Fantastic coffee. Had some of the dark roast this morning. They also got mild roast, light roast, decaf, mushroom organic blend. They got the K-Cups. It is delicious stuff, roasted in our nation's heartland, founded by good people, Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, who are also great broadcasters. They give back. They donate to Tunnel to Towers Foundation with a portion of all the proceeds that they got. And I got a promo code for you. Alex gets you 20% off at checkout on your first order. That's Alex, crockettcoffee.com. It really is fantastic stuff. Guys, I'm not endorsing anything I put in my body that I don't think is high quality stuff. It tastes great, and it's a good company to support. So crockettcoffee.com, promo code Alex. Here's Michelle Tafoya. Okay, about a month and a half ago, Michelle Tafoya was on my show, and we started talking about Minnesota at the end of the interview. And I said, next time we come back, we're going to have to talk about Minnesota. Well, I was hoping to be under different circumstances than this week. But Michelle is, I think, one of the people who understands the area better than anyone in public life that I saw, commenting on X, et cetera, about what was going on with this trans monster shooting up a Catholic mass with children in it that we've been discussing all week. She's, of course, my terrific colleague at the Salem Podcast Network. You should get her podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Highly recommend. Michelle, where do you want to start? I mean, what struck you the most? What information do you feel like is not getting out there? I'll let you take the con.
Well, I have been surprised at how many people are unaware of this guy's manifesto, of the video he put out. He was clearly deranged, to say the very least. And I received, it's amazing the conversation that's going on around this person's state of mind. Why do you have to point out that he's trans? Do we need to honor his pronouns? My God, he's a murderer. The reason I think that the trans issue becomes central to this, or at least a part of this, is because we've seen it before. We saw it in Nashville, a very similar shooting. Very similar circumstances. Someone who went to the school and then went and shot up a bunch of kids who happen to be trans. So this is a pattern. This guy also was obsessed with school shooters. His mom was an employee at the church. All of this stuff matters to his mental state and how it went unnoticed for this long. Alex, that's the big question for me. How could no one in his sphere, in his circle, have not known about this manifesto, about all the weapons and the deranged thoughts?
Yeah, I opened the show today saying I think it's demonic possession, and I think that people need to understand that's that's what this is to me. Clearly, you see the etchings of him staring in a mirror, and it's Satan looking back. It wasn't really subtle to me. I think the burden of proof is on to prove it's something else. And you raised the question that I've been raising from the start, which is that how did we all miss this? And I feel like there is. I'm not a red flag law guy, but I mean, we're supposed to be a community. We're supposed to remember it takes a village. A famous woman once said that before. How did this go completely unnoticed? Could this person be so insular and live such an online life that no one could perhaps notice that this was possible?
I think that is a potential. We're going to find all of this out, right? Here's the situation as we're speaking right now, Alex. His mom has yet to speak to the police, and I think she's central in this. Again, she was the one that took him and had the legal name change. She's his mother. She has a certain measure of connection with this person. I am sure that she is wants to be anywhere but where she is. I can't even imagine if this were my son. Not only is he gone, but he's taken lives and ruined lives and brought shame, to say the very least, on her family. So I can understand her not wanting to talk to the press yet and wanting to lawyer up, which apparently she has. So having said that, the sooner she puts out some sort of statement about her son and this relationship with the church, the better. People want answers. And I'm sure that she feels like she needs to protect herself legally because other parents, have gotten themselves into legal hot water when their kids have done these things. Yeah. But we need these parents of the living and the dead want answers, and she's right there.
Yeah, this is another point that I think must be emphasized. We need to look at what is the goal now. The goal now should be how do we hold people to account and how do we prevent more things like this? And I feel like if there is a penalty for the parents, then there is higher likelihood you'll stay on top of your children. And it gets tricky, maybe impossible after they're adults, but we know that these parents help facilitate the transition. I don't even know how serious the transition was as a minor, as a child. So it certainly raises suspicions about the quality of parenting this individual
and about the mental health of the individual.
Absolutely. Well, that's the whole chicken and egg thing now. I think it's official, is that we don't know, is trans being a symptom of mental health issues, or does the becoming trans increase the mental health issues? It probably is just a blatant slippery slope where you just keep going down this just horrible sequence of events. But the point is, for me, is that we got to start holding the communities, particularly the parents, accountable, particularly when it's a minor. But even in the adults, I would like to see at least some level of societal shaming, because you've got to stay on top of your family members. It's just part of life. And we cannot have a society if we don't expect this of people.
I think you're right. It's tough when they become an adult. You are no longer responsible for them. But I would like to see families tighten up around one another. Sometimes it just doesn't go well. Sometimes families just break up. I don't know. We're going to find out a lot more about this whole relationship, certainly. But I think one of the things, people have been criticized for the whole thoughts and prayers thing. And honestly, the people who come back with, thoughts and prayers don't mean anything, you're starting to sound like that's your religion. So be careful. But here's the thing. If you want process and policy and action, I have long, since before Sandy Hook, been an advocate of having an armed person on every school ground that there is. Mm-hmm. And one of the only arguments I heard was, well, what if some strong 14-year-old tackles the person and steals the gun? I think the likelihood of that is so slim. And clearly the likelihood of someone attacking a soft target is bigger. Also, I walk around Minnesota into grocery stores, churches, schools, where these signs are posted, guns banned on these premises. Well, now we know. It's a soft target. There's no deterrence on the other side of this door. So I can go in and I'm going to get away with whatever I want.
Yeah, I think that this is all, if we're trying to have a serious discussion, this has all got to be in play. I don't understand why it wouldn't be terrific just to have one armed ex-cop, ex-military just on the premises. It just makes it so much less likely that one of these maniacs is going to target a environment like this. What we learned about this person is that they specifically waited for the children to go to mass, the first mass of the school year. It was so premeditated, and no one was aware of all this plotting that had to have gone on for weeks, if not months, in the lead up to it. And then the children were completely defenseless until the guy blew his own brains out. It just, that is not acceptable. So if we choose to not accept it, then what are the solutions? It's not going to be taking away guns, though. I did call on the show yesterday, gun bans for trans. Like let's test all the Democrats. Let's put them up to it. We're taking the guns from the trans. Will you get behind that level of gun control? I want to test them on that. But I mean, it feels like the armed security is the way that's the place to start.
I think it is a place to start. And I had a friend of mine tell me this morning that whenever she and her daughter now go into their neighborhood Walmart, they see now that there is a police car and a policeman inside the Walmart, because Walmart's had some issues as well. And so they've taken it. I don't know if they are privately contracting with the local police or what they're doing, but that kind of presence is a deterrence. And I think deterrence is key here. So you can keep talking about gun laws. I mean, Minnesota has some of the strictest gun laws. I'm not sure how this person, with all of his red flags, there are red flag laws in Minnesota. How did he get these weapons? I think those are valid questions, but I think just to shoot down people for saying, I'm praying for these families, that doesn't mean we're not seeking policies. I'm right here saying we got to harden these targets. Churches, schools, we protect airports, we protect federal buildings, state buildings. Why the hell are we not protecting kids?
Okay, so let me ask you about the laws specifically in Minnesota and Minneapolis. We know it was supposed to be a gun-free zone. They always are. They're almost always gun-free zones when these places happen. But what is the what should we know about the laws in this city and in your state?
Well, they are strict. This is a very blue state. I can't sit here and recite the laws to you, but I know that people who want common sense, universal background checks, so many of these things are already in place. But somehow this person, mentally disturbed as he was able to get all of these weapons and all of these bullets. And we don't quite know how yet. I'm sure that that's going to be a major focus of this whole investigation. We don't know how yet. But I don't think that Minnesota law allows for this kind of thing. Look, it's a big hunting state, so people have hunting licenses. There are concealed carry laws here, and I know a number of people who do conceal carry. They're good people. They're protecting themselves and their families, so that is allowed here in Minnesota. I think so many people just want to take guns off the streets. I don't know that this would have been any different with certain policies in place. See, criminals don't give a crap about laws. Right. Deranged people don't care about your laws. They're going to find a way around them. And we've seen that with the increase in stabbings as well. So, I don't, certainly we can all agree that there are common sense gun laws that should be in place, red flags amongst them. But criminals only respond to deterrence and strength. I am a big believer in the Second Amendment. I think that reasonable gun laws are fine, but I think that extreme knee-jerk reaction of remove all guns is so short-sighted as to what that could result in.
Yeah, I think that's it's just not even realistic right now. So give me your take on some of the reaction from some of the Minnesota politicians. Amy Klobuchar was out there immediately calling for gun control. Tim Walz, famously is the biggest trans. I mean, he's called Tampon Tim because of he loves the trans. Well, we saved the clip. I'll play this really fast just for give a little texture to the broadcast.
Minnesota ranks the highest per capita for being a safe haven for transgender individuals in Minnesota. And
Minnesota is the number one for trans in Minnesota. That's what he says. He's clearly a genius, whatever that means.
He's brilliant. Look, this is not an anti-trans statement to say that we have seen an uptick in violence from this community. I happen to think that we are looking at this trans and this gender affirming care all wrong. You do not just say, our lieutenant governor, Peggy Flanagan, has said, when children tell us who they are, we need to believe them. Well, my kid used to dress up as Darth Vader. My daughter used to dress up in the Frozen dresses. That's not who they are. And I would never have let them believe that's who they are. So, no, when you're born a girl, it's because you have certain chromosomes and biological parts. You're not assigned that sex. You are that sex. This is scientific. This is biology. So this movement toward, we need to accept kids for whoever they think they are. Kids' brains aren't developed, folks, until they're like 22 to 25 years old. Right. So don't tell me these kids know who they are. I heard a psychologist out in San Francisco say, well, trans kids know they're trans from the time that they're babies. If you see a little boy in a crib in a onesie and he pulls the snaps open, that means he's preferred to be wearing a dress. And if you see a little girl who's pulling barrettes out of her hair, that means she'd prefer to be a boy. Bull. This is so bizarre. This attitude toward natural human behavior is so bizarre. And the fact that we don't start with mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual intervention first is nuts to me. Like starting just, oh, great. You want to be a girl? Let's put you on puberty blockers. That is insanity.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's child abuse. And I think it needs to be treated like that. And again, no one would have objected to the trans stuff if it really was just grown-ups doing this behavior in private. But it became quickly clear that it's a sexual fetish and then it is imposed upon the children.
With kids, it's become this social contagion. And I think we can look at the spike in kids identifying as trans starting right around COVID when the lockdowns happened. And they were relegated to TikTok and Instagram, and they had all these influencers telling them you can be whatever you want. And if your parents don't love you, I'll love you. I mean, this is a a social contagion, if anything. And I hope it is peaked out and we're going to start to see it diminish. I think
hope so.
Yeah.
I think society's tolerance of it is going to drop rapidly after this one. I feel like a lot of people on the right feel like I'm not going to be shy anymore about speaking out against this stuff and the normalization of it. And I think that that's what happened very quickly is we got on this slippery slope and then all of a sudden it was everywhere. And Trump's quote, which kind of sounds dumb at the start, but as usual, there's more to it. Transgender for everyone. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's really what it became. It just became a ubiquitous part of society overnight without us thinking about it. And this reminds me of something else that became a ubiquitous part of society without us thinking about it, which is social media platforms. And this is something that I think is really important because I've been describing this as the extremely online killer because what's written on these guns, what's scrawled in these notebooks is all the online slogans that you see a lot of younger people write. It's every single one. I don't think he missed a single one. Yeah. And that also disturbs me because I'm in deep fear of the fact that we've replaced the play-based childhood with the online social media likes-based childhood. And I don't think that works for the vast majority of people. There's a few people with great jawlines who are great at pranks who that's going to be great for them because they can make some money on Instagram. But other than that, it's really bad for everyone else. And yet we just went headlong into this. You have children a little older than mine. What are your thoughts here? Is this something we can correct?
God, I hope so, but it sure feels like the toothpaste is out of the tube. I asked my kids recently, do you wish you had grown up with or without social media? My daughter, who's 17 now, said without. And my son, who's 19, said with. It's allowed me to stay in touch. Both of my kids went through COVID. My daughter, I think, was in 5th grade. My son was in 7th. So they experienced this lockdown in a severe way. I know that they were both really lonely. And they handled it differently because their personalities are differently. Not all kids are created equal. So you have to adjust to the child. You have to say, I know my daughter and what she's doing. I know my son and what he needs. But the last thing I would do would be to say, if they came to me and said, I think I'm a dog or I think I'm a boy when I'm a girl, the last thing I would do is take them to a gender affirming care person who's going to convince me that would you rather have a live son or a dead daughter or vice versa. That's sick. And there are other ways to approach this. I'm with you. When people become adults and they decide they want to live another lifestyle, that's up to them. When they are children, their brains are not formed. There are chemical imbalances. I remember adolescence and how tough it was. And I've seen both of my kids through it, and it's tough. So that's something people have to go through, no matter how uncomfortable. Let your kids become stronger by going through that adversity. Do not coddle this ridiculous belief that they were born in the wrong body.
Yeah, and I think that this connects also with some of the points you're making about how you got to keep an eye on your kids, even as they pass the 18-year-old threshold. Their brains aren't fully formed, and it feels like we're having a arrested development anyway in the younger generations due to some of these apps. They're not getting the social skills as quickly. They're not getting some career and people skills. So we've got to be a community here and keep an eye out and try to identify when people have just succumbed to the darkness, was what happened here. So I just want to, the last little bit here, I know you got to run, and thank you for making the time for us on the Marlowe Show today. But we are praying for Minnesota and for Minneapolis. Is there anything unique about this area that you feel like would help shed a light on some of these things to the audience?
It's a really interesting time here in this state. Look, this was a Catholic school. These children were praying. I've had people come to me, whether it's on the phone or in an email or wherever, and say, how could any God let this happen to children who are praying? It was the same kind of question, Alex, as during those floods in Texas. These little girls were at religious camp. How could any God allow this? Look, here's one quick anecdote. My closest aunt lost 2 of her 3 children, one when he was 2.5 to cancer, one when he was 18 to muscular dystrophy. She is one of the most faithful people that I know and remains incredibly faithful. It got her through. There are a number of people I know who have lost children whose faith is what gets them through. So to criticize that or downplay that, which is happening in Minnesota and in DC and with Jen Psaki, is unfair. It's disrespectful, quite frankly. to what people believe. Let them hang on their faith if that's what they need. So Minnesota is a very split place. I can tell you that the church and the school have lots of memorials going up today, flowers, notes, all kinds of things, that this community is rallying around these families and that these two precious children, I hope, never to be forgotten.
Beautifully said. Michelle, we pray for your neck of the woods up there. Thank and you. All the families that are traumatized by this. And
unapologetically praying for them. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Alex.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for making the time on the Marlowe Show. Everyone should check out the Michelle Tafoya podcast. Excellent interviews over there for all of you to take in. Please do that. And that's it. That's today's show. Thanks, Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience. 5-star reviews are very helpful. Aloha at alexmarlowe.com. If you care to leave some thoughts, subscribe wherever you get your shows. And we'll talk to you next week.